Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my LinkedIn Lives. I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing expert, working with educational institutions and companies, helping them support their family wellbeing challenges. And as you know, every week I interview different experts who make a difference. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing Ciaran. Hi, Ciaran.
Jasmine, how are you? I hope today goes better than the last time. I don't know if you remember, but the last time we did a live, we kept losing internet. And so for anyone watching, it would have been awful. So I hope it's better. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure it will be. Thank you so much for coming back. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm a certified executive and performance coach. I work with 2B Limitless. We work with teams, high-performing teams. When people ask me, who's your perfect target market, I just say anybody who wants to be better, anybody who wants to be a high performer, a high achiever. And that's the general, one-liner. Of course, excuse me, a bit chesty. Of course, we get a lot of people coming to us who maybe are lacking a bit of purpose, lacking a bit of drive, lacking a bit of motivation. But from a corporate perspective, the teams that we work with are teams that just want to be thriving, that really where leaders are investing in the well-being of their teams, and to see an opportunity for growth. And for me, going into an organization, if somebody said to me, can you come in? I said, tell me about your team. I said, we all want to be the CEO of the company. We all want promotion. I'm like, get me working with this group of people. You've got so much to work with here.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And you chose this title today, Staff Wellbeing and Staff Performance. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you chose it for today?
Yeah, I mean, from a performance perspective, I'm all about performance. If that's what my son Harry, if he's 4 years old, if he's writing his name and the H can be better, let's make it better. And I think I look at performance and I think organizations, and I think there's a big gap. Is everybody really performing at their max? Is everybody really giving it their all? A question I ask everyone at the start of a session is, would you employ yourself?
Wow.
And of course, everyone says, of course, yeah, yes, I would. I suppose I said, but let's pick last Tuesday. Would you employ yourself last Tuesday? You're like, oh, this is exactly. So there's room there for development, room for improvement. We're not all performing at our max every day. We're not all giving our best. We're not all showing up at our best. So for me, the element of performance is very important. Excuse me. Wellbeing comes very much into that as well. And with Heartland School, I'm the wellbeing advisor. And a lot of my work in my book for students is all about wellness. And for me, it's important. If we get the wellness right, we get the rest right. But we have to start with the basics. And even in organizations, when the coaching, Jasmine, is about performance on work, I always say we start with you. We start with the person. We focus on you. Tell me about your life. Let's forget about work for a second. Tell me about you. What's going on in your life? What's going on in your personal life that's possibly stopping you from performing at your best at work?
Exactly. That's so important. I think that's such a huge insight, especially when you teach that to other people, because I've done that before. You've gone into a room and they're just expecting you to just talk about work or, the problems with somebody else. It's the job, it's the hours, it's something else. But when you start teaching and showing that actually everything starts with us and our well-being, it's incredible, isn't it? Because actually it means we can actually change that. And like you said, we can improve. And I think there's nothing more important than well-being. I totally agree. But what do you like? How much is enough? Because like you mentioned a few times about being better, improving. I feel like the danger of that could be you never get to that point. Is that okay? Like what would you say about that?
Yeah, I don't know if you know the John Whitmore growth mindset graph.
Yeah.
The x-axis is all about performance and KPIs and deliverables, and the y-axis is all about your purpose, your values. You could say you're kind of more airy-fairy part of things. Some people break it down to your work and your person, but it's not just like that. And what John Whitmore is going at here is we need to balance. We need to be somewhere in between. It can't always be about performance. It can't always be about KPIs. It has to be about, are you fulfilling your commitment to yourself? Are you feeling valued? Are you honoring your values? Are you living your purpose? And if you're doing all the stuff on the y-axis, the x-axis will be delivered. You will be able to perform. But if we're fully focused on our x-axis, then there's going to be an imbalance. It's going to be a problem. Now, to contradict that, not contradict, but the challenge is, if we're fully focused on our y-axis, okay, we're not getting anywhere. There's no movement of the needle. We're not delivering. And an example I would give, with consultants over here, always over and back to Saudi, and some of my clients, and they really struggle to sit down and have a coaching session. And when they do, you could see it. They're just exhausted. They're delivering for work, but maybe not delivering for themselves, and certainly not their families. So their y-axis has not been achieved. Their x-axis is. You can flip that over and say, let's just say, no insult intended, but let's just say a yoga instructor who loves yoga, loves doing yoga, and created a business out of it. But maybe they're not actually selling anything, in the sense that they're doing yoga all the time, but they're not really treating it as a business.
Oh, yeah.
Then they're fully on the y-axis. They're in Zen. They're feeling good about themselves. They're happy. They've got free time, but they're not anywhere near delivering what they need to deliver for a business. That's why getting something around the middle, the balance, is so important in this particular area.
Wow. That sounds incredible, actually. That sounds absolutely incredible. And I guess it all comes down to, and what you do, first and foremost, is providing them with that tool so they have that self-awareness.
Absolutely. I mean, I would show the model. I would say, tell me, where are you on the model? And just say, there, okay. And I said, go tell me about it. That could be a 90-minute coaching session. Because there's so much self-reflection, so much self-awareness, so much kind of penny dropping and thinking, oh yeah, I'm spending too much time in this particular area and not enough in here, And what I always do is, with people, when I work with the person, first and foremost, it's a case of, let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at your sleep. Let's look at your diet, your water intake, your exercise. Let's look at the things that make you happy. What fills your bucket? Spending time with your children. How often are you getting to do that? That's important. That's important. Yeah. And, I have a rule for myself that if a client cancels last minute on me, I never get annoyed. That's family time. So I always invest that cancellation with an hour with my children, and I do something fun.
Amazing.
That's part of my formula, my winning formula. And what we do with that is we figure out what people's winning formula is. What makes you tick? What makes you deliver at your best? What fills your bucket?
Yeah. And that's brilliant. And I think what I love about what you're saying is when you go out and you deliver these workshops and things, you're actually practicing what you're preaching. You're actually doing it yourself, aren't you? And I think that people who are in your workshops will probably feel that and see that, because you can't you
got to show up at your best as well, and I used to be a teacher, and so did you. It's difficult. There's times you walk into a classroom in school and you're just exhausted, and you open the door and you're like, morning everybody, it's a show. And I think if you do that with adults, I don't think there's a hiding place. I think you have to be authentic.
Yes.
You have to be showing up at your best. So for me, what does it take to show up at my best? It takes me doing my daily rituals, me getting up at 5:30 in the morning, me hitting the garden and doing stretching and a bit of breath work, me getting 20 minutes reading in, and then my children waking up, and then I feed my children, I wash my children, I get them ready for work, and then I get on with my thing. But I had to do that morning rituals to get them in at that time of the day. What else works for me, Jasmine? Exercise is so important. If I don't get to the gym, I'm angry. I had a surgery on my neck just over a year ago, and I find if I don't exercise, it just gets tight. And if it gets tight, it just get a bit kind of a headache sometimes, and just a bit of chronic pain. So exercise is very important for me because it's part of my deliverables. And feeling good about myself is so important. Dressing well. When I go out, I make sure I'm feeling good about myself. It's important. It's Very, very important, So, of course, I'm really well dressed for you right here. I'm not wearing shorts or anything, and I am. I've got my best shoes on and everything just for this interview. So, all's
Amazing,
important.
amazing. And I think but you do look smart. You do. You do. I think, like what you were saying as well, it can have a knock-on effect, can't it? Like maybe if you miss, if you're supposed to exercise one morning and you miss it, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and you sort of can go on a negative spiral just because you've missed one thing.
And the one thing that people tend to miss is that late night, is getting to bed early, to stay up too late.
Yes.
Excuse me, because they stay up late, they lie in late, because they lie in late, they didn't get any of them morning rituals in.
Yes.
And for people who go out partying, they might wake up with a bit of a hangover and feeling unwell. The trigger to that is a bit of a lazy morning. The trigger to that is maybe some junk food. The trigger to that is more laziness, and all of it combined is not good for this.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And I read somewhere that actually that is the hardest thing for people to do is go to bed early, the discipline of going to bed early. But you're right. It, like you said, it has a knock-on effect to everything the next day. It's very interesting. Hi, Russie. How are you doing? And hi to everybody else who's joining. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments. We would love to hear from you. And we are with the expert Ciaran today. So, no, Ciaran, it's very interesting. And so what kind of problems do you deal with in your workshops with your clients to do with well-being performance?
Great question. Well, I suppose I'll break down the programs that we offer, and I can talk about the type of people who take on board them programs. So the most probably prevalent one we do with To Be Limitless is leader as coach. Now, that's about moving away from, just for leaders, moving away from traditional leadership style to a more coach-like, supportive, less directive leadership style. And that can be a 4-hour workshop, or we've even done it over 2 days. It could be very cool. We want to really encourage people to behave like coaches. And I would just, from a personal example, since I've done my coach training, I'm a better person. I'm a better husband. I'm a better dad, without a doubt. So the whole idea is all that self-awareness, understanding your purpose, understanding your values, understanding how to listen to a transformational style, understanding how to ask powerful questions. It all makes us better people. So this is a wonderful course. This is for people who are leaders, but want to be more modern style leaders, for a new generation of people who maybe aren't as money orientated as the previous generation, but are more in kind of sync with their values, more in sync of being respected and what's important to them, understanding what they want, And if we're working with people who have different needs and that's just financial, we have to understand how can we work with them, not against them? How can we work with the flow, not against the flow? So leaders coach is a great one. Probably our most biggest one, I would say, is unleash your strengths. Have you heard of Clifton Gallup strength assessment?
Yes, I've heard of it. I've never done it though. Yeah.
So I've obviously done it all and demonstrated, but my number one is restorative. Now, every strength has a balcony and a basement. Your balcony is your strength at its best, and your basement is your strength at its worst. So my number one strength is restorative. Restorative means refining things, problem solving, making things better.
Okay.
The basement to that, Jasmine, is, you're never happy with the end product. You're always refining. You're extremely critical and extremely self-critical. For example, that book Over My Shoulder, that was finished a year before I actually released it, because I kept reading it and reading it and reading it, so much so that I wouldn't even read it now. And somebody asked me, can I make an audiobook? And I said, no way. I am never reading that.
Really?
Book. Absolutely. Because I was reading it and finding an error. And because I found one error I had in my head, I got to read it all over again.
Oh, no.
I even brought a second editor in because I wasn't content with the quality of the first editing.
Wow.
So my point is that was my basement talking, not my balcony. That was me at my worst. But the whole idea here with the assessment is the organization would do the assessment. You get 34 strengths, and you know what your top 5 are. So we would go in and work with your top 5. We would get your team to understand your top 5, and we would think, that's why she behaves that way, or that's why he does this, because that's his strength. That's part of his personality. So understanding the people you work with is so important for moving the needle forward.
Yeah. So it's not about changing them. It's not about
No.
changing people.
It's about working with their strengths. And let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Eddie Jones. It wasn't Eddie Jones. English rugby player, a rugby manager. Every time he won, he studied his wins, because the wins was what was making him successful, not the losses. Now, he didn't neglect the losses, but when a sports team loses, it's like, okay, let's focus on what did we do wrong? What do we need to do better? But actually, we flip that and we say, okay, what did we do right? How can we do more of that?
Wow.
So the whole idea there is that when people understand their strengths, we work with them strengths and we amplify them strengths, and we get them to understand how we can use these strengths more. And like, I'll use rugby as another example. I don't know if you know what rugby players look like, but you've got from 1 to 15 different positions and massive different abilities and physiques and somatotypes. Okay. But the whole idea collectively, you might have somebody who's 7 foot and 20 stone. You might have somebody who's 5 foot and 9 stone.
Oh, wow, okay.
They're all part of the team. They've all got some role within that team. And if the guy who's here cannot do his role, then this person can't do the role, and vice versa. So we have to get people working together on their strengths, So that's strengths. My own stuff, I've got a really, what I enjoy is on public speaking. I probably told you this before, Jasmine. I hated public speaking. It was something that in the Irish education system, we were never trained to do. And I had a big issue with it, and I knew it would hold me back in my career. Now, it's bizarre because I was a teacher, and people always said, there's no way you've got an issue with public speaking. I was like, you wouldn't believe what I had to go through to stand on that stage,
Yes, I believe.
I've invested in myself, public speaking, financially, and my time, and I've seen psychologists and everything. And I found my winning formula. A couple of weeks ago, I stood in front of 170 people. And
wow, Ciaran, that's amazing.
And it was my biggest step. But the reason I say that is because what I'm doing is working. I figured out my winning formula. So I've created a workshop to help people figure out their winning formula. And it's called the Perfect Public Speaking System. And I love it. And I love it because I always say, I'm terrified of public speaking. I'm absolutely not perfect, but I'm far, far better than I was 12 months ago, 2 years ago, 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm moving in the right direction. And we're here today for you to move in the right direction. And it's not just about standing in front of a massive audience, Jasmine, and delivering a presentation. It could be speaking in a meeting at work. It could be as small as one-to-one. We talk about hand gestures. We talk about body movement. We talk about eye contact. We talk about tonality, all this stuff. But I love it because the transformation in people, Jasmine, from the start to the end, phenomenal. So I really, really love that one, No,
I love that. And I love what you said about moving. It's not about how fast or how much. It's just about moving in the right direction, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people can get overwhelmed. Like I was doing a workshop today, actually, about well-being. And you could see that at the beginning, they were thinking, I have to change everything. It's impossible. You could see the overwhelm first. But then, when we started talking about it and realizing it's not about changing your whole life in 1 second. It's about making a tiny step, a tiny change in the right direction and having that shift.
It's that 1%, Jasmine. I completely agree with you. It's about moving that 1% today and 1% tomorrow. And after a week, that's 7%. After a month, that's 7%, et cetera, et cetera, And applying the skills is so important. It's not just about learning the contents, but getting out there, getting out there and applying them skills. But you also have to be achievable. It's not a case of looking at Barack Obama, who I love as a speaker, and saying, I'm so far away from that. It's actually looking at yourself and thinking, where can I be in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year,
Wow.
2 years? So you got to make it
Yeah.
measurable and achievable. You got to make it smart, essentially.
Yes, yes. And I love what you said about reflecting, looking back and seeing how far you've come. I think that is so important, because it's so easy just to keep thinking, okay, the next step, you achieve something, you don't even realize, or you just go on to the next thing. But like you said, looking back to see how far you've come actually is probably one of your motivators.
Absolutely. And I was very curious about how my body, what was my body going to tell me for this event? You know, it was booked in months
Yeah.
ago. And I said yes to it 6 months ago, knowing that I have to say yes. I can't
Yeah.
have it like I'm doing and say no to opportunities like this, you know? And I was ready and I was prepared, but I was very curious. What would my body say? How will my body feel? And as soon as I walked into this massive room in the hotel, I seen the stage, and I always had in my head that I'm going to kind of feel anxious.
Yes.
And I seen the stage, and I smiled and I said, "That's my stage. That's."
Wow.
And that wording, that language for me was so powerful, from my own head to go, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to deliver. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And you're looking at the video back thinking, I can't believe that's me. And the reason I show vulnerability with this, I don't pretend to be perfect and great at this. I show vulnerability to let the audience and the listeners know that we all feel like this and we all have a little bit of this, and it's been a journey. But if I can do it, everybody else can bloody do it too.
That's so inspiring, Ciaran. And what do you think changed? Like, what's been the biggest sort of change, or what have you done differently to create that massive change, rather than, like you said, you would feel it in your body, but you didn't feel it in your body? Like, how did that happen? How did that happen? Tell us.
I figured out my winning formula, you know. So I did visualizations in about 2 weeks in the build up. I sat in the garden every morning and I pictured that stage, number one. So
Wow.
I created, you know, it wasn't just a case of rocking up and delivering. There was a process. So that was part of my process. A lot of visualizations on it. A lot of breath work, okay, in the sense that I was preparing myself. If I feel this way, if I feel like anxious, if I feel worried, I got to calm myself down. Lots of anchoring. I don't know if you've heard of anchoring before, but lots of anchoring.
Yes,
And
I have.
and of course, I've done my training. I've invested in public speaking, so I know the content. I know you know, the skill set of it. But obviously, knowing it and applying it are two different things. You know,
Yes. Yes.
and I got there, and I you know, I followed the process. You know, you look at an elite athlete lining up for the 100-meter final in the Olympics. They would have a process. They would know what they're eating. They would know what time they're getting up. They would know where they're going to be at this particular time. They would know what shoes to wear. Except all that process, down to what I was wearing. I knew what I was. I knew the whole step-by-step process, and I followed that. You know, I'd be very committed. You know, I'd be very committed and dedicated. But actually, to really go a little bit deeper, potentially there, what really made me do it, I said to myself, a bit of tough love. I said, don't tell me you want to be a successful, you know, facilitator or a speaker if you're not going to take these opportunities. You need to get up there and deliver, because you know what, Ciaran? This is your job. This is your job. So get up there and give it your best. You know, so a bit of tough love come in there as well. And I'll give you an example of my dad. My dad said to me afterwards, he says, I don't know how you did it. And I said to Dad, well, Dad, it's my job and I've got responsibility for my family. I said, you worked in the same office for 45 years to support us. You did what you had to do for your family. I'm doing what I had to do for my family.
Wow.
And where I'm going with that, Jasmine, is that sometimes we just need to get on the bike and cycle. You know, we just need to get on that stage and deliver. We just need to step out of our comfort zone into the stretch zone, make sure we don't touch the panic zone, that we're in control the whole time.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's so inspiring, Ciaran. That's amazing. That's so inspiring. It really is. It really is. And I love what you said. It's like you're giving yourself tough love, but also what you said before, which I love, is about about strength and praise rather than criticism and what have we done wrong? What have I done wrong? Because I really feel like that doesn't always help, does it?
Well, you think of young people, Jasmine, you do a lot of work with young people, and we were young people ourselves.
Yeah.
What would have been possible if we were being treated based on our strengths, if our strengths were being amplified? You know, and I use the American example because I admire it. Yes, we can. Yes, I can. But I grew up in an environment where no. That's your box. Let's just stay in your box. You know, an assessment level where you're being assessed on an exam, you're assessed on a memory test. How many people failed in that system, but actually as people, they had so many other strengths that weren't being assessed. So this kind of stuff frustrates me because there's so much talent out there, but because we're assessing it in a certain way, it doesn't match that talent. That's why we need to get adults, excuse me, who've maybe lost that belief in themselves and find that belief again, because if we've got something, we just need to turn it on.
Oh, that's amazing. I think the most powerful thing is self-belief, and that's something, once you have it, once you really have it, it can't be taken away. It really can't be taken away. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Ciaran, thank you so much. This is so interesting, but we are running out of time.
We're out of time already.
I know, can you believe it? So what else would you say if for people who are watching and, you know, they're thinking, you know, I'm maybe not enjoying my life, or something's missing, or I'm feeling stressed, like, where do I start? Like, what would you say to them?
Great question, Jasmine. I would have to start with a bit of self-reflection.
Okay.
You know, and looking at what's making you feel this way. But actually, if I had them on a call, the first question I would say is, what's good about you?
Oh, really?
Tell me about your best day you've ever had, and how can we make more of them?
Oh, wow. I love that question. In fact, I'm going to ask myself that question later. So a powerful question. Again, you're bringing out the positive points and happy parts to it as well. You're not focusing on the negative.
I think it's important that we get people to remind themselves of what makes you happy. So one activity I do is I say, give me a list of what makes you happy. Give me a list of what makes you sad. Okay, how often in the last 7 days have you done this? How often in the last 7 days have you done this? Okay, you said this makes you happy, yet you haven't done it in the last 7 days. There's an action for you. Go and do it.
Yeah, as simple as that. As simple as that. And sometimes, how often? I mean, I do now, but how often? I mean, before I started coaching and everything, did I even ask myself those questions? I didn't even know to ask myself those questions. You know, zero awareness.
That's it. It's so powerful. And sometimes we just need to take stock of ourselves and be kind and give ourselves a bit of self-compassion. I know lots of dads working extremely hard, lots of moms working extremely hard for their children and their family. And I always say, what about you? Let's start with you. You know, and the word selfish, I don't like it. And I like to reframe it to a more positive kind of feeling where let's do something for you. And it's not selfish to do something for you. Be kind to you. If you're being kind to everybody else, let's be kind to you. Let's do something good for you.
Exactly. Completely agree. No, thank you so much, Ciaran. It's been amazing. I've loved talking to you. And I think you're doing amazing work out there. I really, really do. It's just, like I said, I don't think there's anything more important than well-being. Without our well-being, there's not much, is there, really? How can people find you?
Thank you, Jasmine. Firstly, thank you for getting me on and all the work you're doing. Great stuff. And I love, you know, your passion and your care and everything you're bringing. So well done to you. Jasmine, people can find me on LinkedIn, Ciaran McBreen. And on Instagram, CMB Coach McBreen. And my website, my personal website is cmbcoachingandtraining.com or 2blimitless.com.
Amazing. And can you put all of those links on the post so people can just click on there? And is there anything else? One word? What would you end it with? One word.
One, strengths.
Strengths. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Ciaran. And thank you, everybody else who has joined. If you have any questions or comments, you can message Ciaran directly or myself, or put a comment on the LinkedIn post. And I will see you next week. Thank you again, Ciaran.
Pleasure, Jasmine. Take care. All the best.